me tell you black. Be a black, babe. Let me tell you black. Be a black, babe. Let me tell you black. Join the crowd. Lights, camera, action, it's on. New black film revolution born. Movers, shakers, big and little filmmakers. Let's make a movie today, see where it take us. Halle Berry, Denzel, and Jamie. Terrence Starr with Mike D and Spike Lee. Brand new filmmaker born every day. Put a camera in his hand and let him lead the way. Let me get an Oscar, let me get an Emmy. Real Black woke up the filmmaker in me. Whether digital, 8mm, 35. Let's make the movies that can open their eyes. Let's tell the stories that need to be told. Make them laugh, make them cry, for the young, for the old. Come on, let's shake it, make it and make movies. Real Black, I really like the way you do
it. It saves us a bus ride. You to New York, me to Philly.
Yeah. So okay. So we're talking with Charles Woods. I asked the professor to watch the new Ghostbusters trailer to give his opinion. Boy Squat Watkins has already sounded off on this trailer. Is there any Tricknology that you notice in this little clip, this teaser of what's going to come?
You mean Boyce has already jumped on this?
Yeah, I guess the trailer's been out a couple days, and he's jumped on it.
Well, let me just say what I have to say, and then I'll Google Boyce and see if we're in sync.
Okay.
But I looked at it,
mm-hmm.
and the first thing that came to my mind is, okay, they've taken something that's very popular, that's Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
How do we reboot it? Okay, we feminize it. And it's always been a comedy, so we keep the comedy, but we'll put in who's the popular white girl who's doing a lot of comedies now.
We got it's an all-star cast. It's Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, Leslie Jones.
Now Leslie, that's who my focus was on.
Okay.
And right away, you know, we were discussing the Magic Negro.
Mm-hmm.
And in my analysis of the Magic Negro, you know, the Magic Negro, as I say, is just an update of the old Uncle Tom, noble savage trope that has been popular in literature and film.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
and that'll be posted not this Monday, but next Monday.
Yes.
We'll have all that together for you.
I'm looking forward to see what the response will be to that. But the thing is, a lot of the viewers have been commenting on the lack of depictions of dark black women.
Mm-hmm.
In Leslie Jones, we have a dark black woman.
Mm-hmm. But
look how she's portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
She's a parody. She's a minstrelized black. She's a burlesque black. They picked her because of her looks.
Right. Well, to be fair, Leslie Jones, that's been her character the whole time she's done stand-up, the whole time she's been on Saturday Night Live. It's been sort of like this loud, kind of obnoxious, you know, overbearing black woman.
Of course. But I don't watch Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember Leslie Jones, the way she was depicted in Martin Lawrence's film, National Security.
Right, yeah, it's gone back a little while, but yes.
Right, so she played the truck driver. And when he first sees her, he has this like, oh my goodness, you know, that kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
But then they toned it down and they showed that, well, you know, hey, there's something here, you know, a little attraction. And maybe they, you know, he's talking about a date maybe sometime later. But the whole thing is, when we first see her, they're making a little joke about how she looks. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So where I'm going with this is that when we have the dark black woman, they're always showing them as being less than attractive. They're funny looking.
Mm-hmm.
See? Okay, now the white counterparts in this film, they're also funny looking.
Right.
Okay? So we have that same look with all the players. But go ahead.
Right. Well, they can't be, they're supposed to be intelligent, scientists, math whizzes, all this kind of stuff, but they're decidedly, sort of definitely made unattractive in this trailer. It doesn't look like they reach any kind of transformational heights in this film. They just kind of geekish.
Yeah, and what they're doing is
no sex appeal.
Yeah, in other words, if we have these women, be they black or white, they're not attractive women. They're funny looking women. They're nerdy. But the thing is, not having seen the film, but it looks like the white women have some kind of smarts about them, some professional. They're professionals in a scientific realm.
Mm-hmm.
But the black woman, they find her not to put down the job she's doing, but she's someone who's a token booth operator.
Right. Which is what Boyce jumped on.
Okay.
He said, well, there's supposed to be all these scientists. Why can't you make the black woman a scientist as well?
Exactly. And then when we get her, she's playing to form, the sassy black woman. She's going to be the tough. I mean, this woman is 6 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
So she's going to come on. She's the big black woman. And they're going to play on that. But the thing is, what they're doing also is they're showing a dark woman as being funny looking. In other words, ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I don't like about it,
Right. Well, speaking of dark women,
mm-hmm.
while we have you here on this test for our upcoming podcast, the Nina trailer is also out this week with Zoe Saldana as Nina Simone, the legendary Nina Simone. We posted a clip earlier this week on the channel to get viewer feedback, subscriber feedback, but we really haven't had a chance to talk to you about it. I mean, what was your take?
Well, what's the word you said? It was gestating a while. But the thing is, that was problematical from the get-go. Zoe playing Nina. I think they would have been better off not doing the blackface.
Mm-hmm.
Just I can understand them going with a name brand. I mean, that's Hollywood. We had Diana Ross. She looked nothing like Lady Day, Billie Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, they didn't lighten up Diana Ross.
Right. And it's just glaringly obvious. The makeup just is the star of this trailer. Whatever you think of Zoe, whatever you think of Nina Simone, it's definitely a disservice. Now, recently, there was obviously a big backlash on Twitter about this whole situation. And actually, Simone Kelly, Nina's daughter, actually came out sort of in defense of Zoe Saldana. The estate tweeted something to the effect of Zoe, don't have Nina Simone's name come out of your mouth. But then a few days later, Simone, Nina's daughter, came out and said, look, it's really not, it has nothing to do with Zoe. It's the director. It's the whole vision of the piece. We weren't consulted. The whole story is fictitious in a sense. You're talking about a relationship that Nina Simone had with her gay helper or manager, and they turned it into a love affair.
So is this the Oluwayo part?
Yes.
So he's playing what, bisexual?
I haven't seen the film yet. I guess it comes out next month on in theaters and on demand. But according to the original words when they were shooting the film, they were trying to make it into like a May-September love affair with this bipolar schizophrenic woman and this guy. But they don't talk about his sexuality. Like in real life, the character that David Oyelowo is playing was decidedly homosexual, but they actually make it a love affair in this film.
Yeah. Well, this this aspect of what they're dealing with, the content it goes to some of what we've discussed previously, and my feelings that, to get things done now, the more dysfunction that's inherent in a piece, the quicker it gets done now. It seems like, here's something that we can do, and look, it's got dysfunction in it. We've got bipolar, homosexuality. You know what I'm saying? This seems to be the state of affairs in Hollywood, and
like it has to have some edge to it, in order for it to get made, even.
Yeah.
Have something to talk about.
Yeah. But I mean, getting back to Zoe, right now people are going to say, well, we said this from the get-go. Why Zoe to play Nina Simone? People couldn't see the match. India, Ari, people felt would have been a better match. But right now this just gives people a way of saying, we told you so.
It's tough getting any film made, and it's so rare that we get a chance to see our heroes' stories told on screen. We have a vested interest, it seems, in terms of Hollywood getting it right.
You asked the question along with the Zoe Saldana, Nina Simone trailer. You also asked, who do you think are some other personalities that should be, some biographies that should be committed to film? And, the tragedy of it is, on the positive side, we have so many stories that can be told. And that's the beauty of our legacy. The African American, the history, there's so many stories that can be told. But when someone else is in control of our image, that's when the negative comes in. It's really done positively, and it's really done in a holistic way that is something that we can be proud of from a cultural aspect. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But I think we're past the point of, the wholesome biopic. It's sort of, you, like you said in the early piece, you kind of need to have some sort of sensational thing in order to tell a person's story now. The old 40 style of I guess 42 was a rarity, but generally, there has to be some sensationalism in order to tell the story. It kind of like the joke in the Oscars that Whoopi Goldberg made, and you say, oh, they're talking about the movie Joy with Jennifer Lawrence. They said, oh, you're making a movie about a woman who invents a mop.
Maybe one day they'll make a movie about a skinny white lady who invented a mop. Of course, a black girl would have to invent the cure to cancer before they even give her a TV movie. Oh my God.
Yeah, if we analyze what stories are getting told now, what black biographies are getting told now, well, everything is on the dysfunction side. Okay, Ray Charles, dysfunction. Selma, which was an autobiography, but what did we get? We got some of the dysfunction with Martin Luther King. So Nina Simone, as you say, there's going to be something about her being bipolar. That's true. And then this love affair with someone who possibly was homosexual, or maybe it's a fact that he was homosexual.
Right.
But what has happened with Hollywood films, we spoke about the code, the production code. Years ago, these things were hush hush. You just brought up we don't have that 40s mentality anymore. Everything changed with the advent of the so-called anti-hero. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So with the anti-hero, what happens is you have what is called, in literature and film, you have the two stock central characters, the protagonist and the and the antagonist. What's happened with since the late 60s is that the protagonist has become the anti-hero. He's a flawed protagonist.
Right.
And so that's what we get now. And it goes back to what I was, I'm a boomer. And in some ways, I'm a little nostalgic for the old days where we didn't have to hear all of the dysfunction, where I know it's unrealistic to see people on the screen and then have these idealistic characters who have no basis in reality. But what I enjoyed with watching these movies is that what was really resonant for me was the message. That was the main thing. Delivering a message of people whom through their character, they taught us how to treat each other.
Well, so I mean, going back in the history, like let's look at the 50s then. There were a lot of biopics of black personalities that were done back then in the 50s. What are some of your favorites from that time period?
Well, the whole thing is when, I have a term I told you was the tongue twister, circumscribed historicity. But the thing is, the biographies they chose to commit to film were basically of sports figures. So we had Joe Louis' story. We had the Harlem Globetrotters. You had two versions of the Harlem Globetrotters. You had the Harlem Globetrotters, and then you had one called Go Man Go. You had, and
one had Dorothy Dandridge, right?
Yes, yes.
Which was which? I always get them confused.
Harlem Globetrotters with Dorothy.
Okay.
Go Man Go had Sidney Poitier and Dane Clark. So the reason why we got those biographies, or when we got those biographies, as I spoke about Jackie Robinson, the one thing they always wanted to do from back in the day is, even though it's going to be a black biography, they wanted to give it a mainstream appeal. So those biographies were great because they could bring in a white person. Branch Rickey with Jackie Robinson. And who do you think was the white person with the Harlem Globetrotters?
Well, Al Saperstein.
Abe Saperstein.
Abe Saperstein, thank you.
Yeah. So you see why that works. Now with Joe Louis, what they did, in the Joe Louis story with Coley Wallace, what they did is they had the narrator was a white sports writer who was so impressed and with Joe Louis, and the story was from his perspective. So that's how they inserted the white in that film.
Now, sticking to the 50s, I mean, I'd like to go through some more things, just because people seem to really appreciate hearing or learning about some of these films that may have been forgotten in some ways. There's one that's on Amazon Prime right now called St. Louis Blues. There's
another one, St. Louis Blues. Nat King Cole playing the W.C. Handy story.
Now he had nothing to do with W.C. Handy. Like they had that one song and that was it.
Yeah, and that not only that, you want to talk about the wrong person for the part. Nat King Cole does not look a thing like W.C. Handy.
And his blues is really smooth. It's has nothing. It's not where you would go if you wanted to learn something about W.C. Handy, but it's a good movie. Now, who's the woman in that movie? I forgot.
Well, you have I call I don't call, but she was known as the girl next door. You had Ruby Dee, and you also had Eartha Kitt.
Eartha, yes.
Eartha Kitt, yeah. But here's the thing: what people have to be very mindful of when you usually get biopics about blacks or stories about blacks. I'll ask you this because you're very erudite. You know film very well. What was Ray Charles?
He was the man, the king of soul, or
Entertainer.
entertainer. Okay, that's
Nina Simone.
entertainer.
Straight out of Compton.
Entertainer.
You get my drift?
Well, yeah, it's easy to find those stories, and certainly those are a lot of our heroes.
Yeah, but the thing is, why stories about the entertainers before we get any other stories? I mean, we finally did get a Malcolm X story.
Mhm.
But for the most part, what you're going to get when it comes to black folk is comedy and music.
Mhm.
Okay? Nina Simone is an entertainer, So, the thing is, years ago, Mike, when they used to do the so-called, what they call the race films,
Mhm.
or when they would have blacks appear in films, they would be entertainers. When you had stellar black personalities on the level of Lena Horne,
Mhm.
when she appeared in films, they weren't going to give her any dramatic parts. And they wanted to make a movie star out of her, but she refused to play a Latin.
Mhm.
The same thing happened with Herb Jeffries. He was a good-looking man. And if the viewers don't know who Herb Jeffries is the entertainer who played in the black westerns.
The Bronze Buckaroo.
Yes, Harlem Rises the Range. They wanted him to play a Latin, and he could have easily have passed. One of the black actors, in fact, there are two black actors who made a living out of playing non-black roles. Noble Johnson, and we need to do something on these what we call ambiguous blacks,
Mhm.
and bring it up to date. If we bring it up to date, who would I throw in there? Who would we throw in there to?
Well, if you're talking about Noble Johnson and then Frank Silvera,
Yes,
the modern day counterparts would be a Vin Diesel and a Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
excellent.
See, I pay attention. I pay attention to the professor when he's teaching. We've had these conversations before for those who are listening. But all right, so moving into the '60s, were there any biopics at that point? I'm trying to think.
Let's see, the '60s. Ooh, basically your '60s. It's a militant era. We're getting close to blaxploitation, which will take off,
Mm-hmm.
have its beginnings around '69. Right now, I can't.
I'm not thinking. There's some musical films, Man Called Adams, and things like that. But
Yeah, and you know what? Here's the thing: you take 1966, A Man Called Adam,
mm-hmm.
which was produced. Incidentally, it was part produced by Sammy Davis, and it was produced by Isaac Jones, also,
Mm-hmm.
whom we lost not too long ago. But you could say in many ways that was maybe something on the order of a Miles Davis type character. But once again, it was a musician who wanted to play his music, who wanted to be black, but he couldn't make it unless he sold himself out. And that's what killed A Man Called Adam. In the title it says, A Man Called Adam. He was trying to be a man, a black man. And we're going to talk about what was one of the significant things about that film. You know what that was? He made a casting choice that was unconventional in the terms of who played his romantic lead.
Well, you had Cicely Tyson.
Cicely Tyson with an afro. 1966. Dark-skinned woman, afro. That's a film people need to watch.
So in the '70s, there are a number of biopics that we can talk about.
Yeah, in the '70s, we had Leadbelly, directed by Gordon Parks.
And Ali, the greatest.
The greatest, yes. And look, once again, what did I say?
Entertainers and sports. Yeah, music and sports again. And Lady Sings the Blues, of course.
Okay, right?
You know, so they're quite a number. So I guess it goes in waves.
Well, the whole thing is it's typical Hollywood, you know. What I was going to say, I didn't even finish my thought, but I brought up the race films.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the race films, when we talk about the race films, those are the films that were made from around, the impetus was the reaction to the birth of a nation, 1915. So many scholars, they call the race film era from around 1915 to 1947.
Okay.
But some of the white producers and even some of the black producers of those films, one, I forget his name, but one said, you know, when we make these movies, we know what the black audience likes. They like music and comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So a lot of those race films, what were they? Music and comedy.
Yeah, a lot of disposable entertainment.
Yes.
But great artifacts nonetheless for that time period.
Well, when I used to lecture years ago, I remember someone corrected me. I made the statement that these films were poorly produced and they weren't really, you know, on a technological level, they weren't really great films. And someone in the audience corrected me afterwards and said, you know what? In fact, no. The person raised his hand and stood up and said, they were great if for no other reason. They will always, as long as they exist, always contain the works of so many great artists. When we talk about the Step Brothers, we can see Step and Fetch It in a race film as opposed to how he appeared in mainstream films. But you had a different characterization of black actors in those films, but there was a lot of great talent. Lena Horne, Ralph Cooper, so many great entertainers.
Definitely. All right, so just moving on to another subject. Wanted to give you an opportunity to address the current question of the day and then also get your impressions of Chris Rock's Oscar speech. So I guess first, I guess we'll talk about Chris Rock's Oscar speech. Did you watch the Oscars, I guess, is the first question. And if so, what did you think of Chris Rock's hosting?
I did. You can't say I boycotted it, but I just didn't watch it.
Okay.
My wife and daughter, they watched it. They taped it. I haven't looked at it yet, but I got the gist of it. You know, I'm not much of a fan of, who.
Okay.
But here's the thing. When you study film, as long as I've studied it, and you're a student of film, and the discussion we've had quite often, there's a dilemma that faces the black actor that faces no other actor. It doesn't even confront his white counterpart. And that's the damned if he does or damned if he doesn't position that the black actor's in. And I'll speak more on that with one of the questions I raised to you. There's always this thing about, I was just reading where someone said, if you look at, let's take, for example, you just did a thing on Tyler Perry. Am I correct?
Okay. Yeah, that's the next question, but go ahead.
Okay. So the thing is, you'll have someone say, Tyler Perry, I don't find anything wrong. And then you'll have someone say, screw Tyler Perry. I think he is, as Spike Lee said, it's coonery and buffoonery. You're always going to get that with the black actor. It's either someone's meat or someone's poison. and that's the dilemma. Clarence Muse, which we're still trying to find that article he wrote years ago.
Yeah, it's apparently if you're in a college university program, the manuscript is available as a PDF, but by us not being in that program, we can't get access to it. But yeah, there's a pamphlet that Clarence Muse, who was a pioneering African-American actor, he was in the first sound film with an all-black cast, Hearts and Dixie, and he acted all the way up through Car Wash, and I think his last movie appearance was in the Black Stallion in the early 80s, like 1979, 1980. So he had a long and storied career, and he was also an activist, and he wrote a pamphlet called The Dilemma of the Negro Actor, which is often quoted in historical references, books about the history of black film.
And he was also recognized as the dean of black actors.
Mm.
But that was so eloquently put, Mike, about Clarence Muse and his position and his outlook on what the problems that confronted the black actors. For example, when Walter White was trying to improve the imagery of blacks during the 40s, and they had Lena Horne as someone they wanted to appear in films on a positive level, you had many black actors who resented what Lena Horne's prospects were in terms of how it would impact on the roles they had. Because what they were fighting against were the stereotypical mammies and butler roles. And a lot of blacks fought against that because, they felt, being what America was at that time, a Jim Crow society, they felt that if those roles were going to get criticized as much as the NAACP was criticizing those roles, what would happen, and it did happen, Hollywood pretty much eliminated those roles for black actors. And then what happened as a consequence, a lot of those maid roles went to the Asians.
Mm.
So instead of the black cook or the black maid, you had the Chinese maid, or the Swedish maid, and then a lot of your Tarzan films, where they used to have the black natives running around in loincloths. All of a sudden, Tarzan was in Africa, but the natives were no longer black. They were exotic, brown-skinned people, where anyone watching the films, you wonder, well, how did they get there?
Which took away from the thing. And I guess the dilemma of the Negro actor is also brought up really brilliantly in Hollywood Shuffle, Robert Townsend's movie from 1987.
Yeah, in other words, what Townsend was bringing to the fore in that film is the fact that the roles that blacks were forced to portray had nothing to do with black identity from a black perspective. It was blacks as whites perceived them. And in fact, you even had white people telling blacks how to act black, which happened with Amos and Andy's show.
Right. So it's a long-standing dilemma. So that folds into the last piece, which is the question of the day, dealing with Tyler Perry. Do you have a favorite Tyler Perry film? And what are your thoughts generally on his career? He's grossed over $1 billion in box office. He's the most successful independent filmmaker of the last 10 years, black or white, but somehow people still take issues with his success.
Well, you know what? Once again, he epitomizes what we said Clarence Muse spoke about. Mm-hmm. And even Jim Brown said the same thing. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. What's my favorite word?
Dichotomy.
It goes back to one man's meat is another man's poison. I loved Daddy's Little Girls. I know the enjoyment we've had watching the Medea series.
Have we?
When I say we, my wife and
Oh, okay. All right.
you
Okay.
know, it's the guilty pleasure. I
Okay.
mean, let me give you an example. Uh, we grew up on Amos and Andy.
Mhm.
Okay, I was the lone person to debate Amos and Andy years ago. Uh, I had to go against Flo Kennedy, and I had to go against someone who was very close to Malcolm X. In fact, after the person who I forget his name, who was very close to Malcolm X, after he finished speaking about what those images were like for him as a soldier stationed over in Germany, I got it. You understand?
Mhm.
But the thing is, for someone who grew up around blacks, a lot of times you can see some blacks in there. But the thing is, what I was arguing is that Amos and Andy, they were nothing like what they were on radio. There was some progressive degrees added to them when it came to television. And for comedy to work, you have to have a counterpoint. If you have a sidekick, the sidekick is the hero's counterpoint. He's the opposite.
Mhm.
Okay. So in comedy, you have to have what is called a straight man and the fall guy. You look at Abbott and Costello, Martin and Lewis. You have to have someone who's smart, whereas the person who isn't as smart, you can get that counterpoint.
Right. Yeah.
So
There needs to be a clown.
so yeah. So the thing is with Amos and Andy, there are a lot of black professionals in those shows. That was fantastic. We never got that on TV. We never saw blacks on TV. So when they were appeared in the Amos and Andy story, that was progressive. You had bankers, police um, commanders, judges. That was unheard of. But the thing is, most people remember is Amos and Andy. In fact, Amos on television was not what he was in the radio incarnation. He was a much brighter person. The person who took over with the buffoonery was the Kingfish character, along with Andy.
Right.
Okay.
But bringing it back to Tyler, a few people have mentioned that their favorite Tyler Perry movie was the first one, Diary of a Mad Black Woman, which, I haven't seen it since it first came out, but it was a very surreal experience because it's sort of like what you were saying, like there was sort of a realistic world being portrayed with all the other actors and the situation of this woman being abused and all this kind of stuff. And then suddenly this man in a dress, obviously a lampoon, sort of a takeoff on the Clump's character or whatever, just shows up and is just boisterous and loud. It's almost like it's two different movies, like this really broad comedy and then this really realistic melodrama.
Well, you know what? A lot of the people are going to say when they bring that film up is how they could relate to it. In many ways, I think one viewer said, I can identify with that. I went through something like that in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
What Medea is Medea is a mammy type, an earth mother type.
Mm-hmm.
I think the detraction is the same detraction we're having with Zoe in blackface. You're focusing on the makeup job, and it's taking you away from the person acting.
Well, I think the most common criticism of Tyler Perry's Medea character is that it's sort of emasculating the black male. That it's a man in a dress, and he's doing it for laughs, and he's making a lot of money, basically promoting sort of this idea that it's okay for men to be in dresses. I don't, I'm not sure. I mean, there's there's implications there, but
yeah, the implications are there. But you know what happens is a lot of people make judgments from an ahistorical perspective. Everyone's quick to bring up conspiracy,
mm-hmm.
and I'm not getting away from the fact that in my analysis, I can point out Tricknology. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I learned a long time ago, we have to be very careful not to make quick judgments without studying. Have others done this before? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Case in point. If they talk about men in drag and the emasculation thing, that's looking at it from one perspective. But the question is, did they do that to white actors as well?
From the beginning of time, it's been a trope in burlesque. You know, Milton Berle brought it to TV. He was known for that.
Milton Berle. How about Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon?
But I think it has a different implication when it's black men in dresses.
And why?
Again, it's the emasculation.
So in other words, with whites, it's not emasculation.
Well, because they get to wake up at the end of it. You know, I guess at the end of Some Like It Hot, it's a little different. The one guy kind of transforms in a way, but for the most part, you know, it's a put on. It's a shtick. You know, Flip Wilson. I know people of a slightly older generation. They had issues with Flip Wilson when he was Geraldine. You know, so
right.
So
I had issues with Flip. I would not watch him as Geraldine because I didn't want to feel guilty if I had to look under his dress.
Well, you said he made a hot little mama Geraldine.
No, I'm just saying if by mistake the guy, you know, forget he was a woman, was supposed to be a woman, and he opens his legs, I don't want to be caught under there because, you know, that's not my thing.
Well, the roots of all of this definitely comes from Dave Chappelle's Oprah appearance.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I think too often we're quick to label something as part of a conspiracy or an emasculation process. I know Dr. Frances Welsing, she spoke about that, you know, where they always wanted to emasculate the black man. And she talks about it when she talks about how you have so many black boys running around with their pants hanging down. She felt that was negative, you know, and it was saying something about blacks being emasculated. You know, where you have your pants down and you were suggesting that, you know, you wanted something to happen to you. You follow where I'm going with that?
Well, yeah. Well, hip hop culture was jail culture. You know, a lot of the things, a lot of the fashions that came out of that became popularized in the streets actually have their roots in jail culture.
Mm-hmm. But the other thing is this. You know, I made this maybe off topic, but I mean, you know, if you're wearing your pants down, and we used to argue over the fact that, you know, what they say happens in jail with men having sex with men.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a big argument where you get a lot of these guys, and you say, well, if you committed a homosexual act, does that make you homosexual? That was a big argument.
If you did it while you were in jail,
yeah.
But when you came out, you were straight.
Yeah.
Well, you know, rape has its own culture and connotations. I don't necessarily want to get into that there, but I mean, if you can make your point.
Well, the thing is,
I mean, you know, it's a power thing in jail is what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, I know. That's where I was going with that. See, people can always find a rationale for what they do. Oh, I'm not a homosexual. It's a power thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rationale, you know. So if blacks, getting back to the image of blacks in dresses, if we see blacks in dresses, we conflate it with the fact that we know Hollywood is not about presenting positive images of blacks. So it's all part of the conspiracy to emasculate blacks and to denigrate blacks, to devalue blacks, to show them as men in drag and that's the way it gets conflated. And,
Right.
and I'm saying, okay, that may very well be, but a lot of times when Hollywood does something, we just can't ascribe it to it being done from a racist perspective. You follow what I'm saying? Because
Well,
someone
yeah.
can.
Well,
Okay.
I think basically where Tyler Perry, when he was defending himself against Spike Lee's accusations that his work was coonery and buffoonery, I think, it was somewhat unfair in the sense that what he had done was successfully take a culture, a language that was very successful on the stage in these Chitlin Circuit plays and translate it into a broader medium of film. And in the process, the fans of his plays supported him, but then he found new people that didn't quite understand the language that he had to explain to. And I think he's still explaining to it, but his fans are die hard in terms of the folks that were there to support him at his earliest plays and bought the DVDs when they're $50 a piece. They still go see Medea movies. They still go see Medea on tour. And it's just something, it's part of the code that I think black folks have, and Tyler Perry's a big piece of that language.
Well, that's what I wanted the point I wanted to make with respect to Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
Zoe's supposed to be playing Nina, but people are getting distracted by the makeup. That's one of the distractions. When Tyler plays Medea, let's say he wasn't playing Medea, someone else played Medea, a woman played Medea.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's a earthly, motherly type character. You could say sort of a magic Negro type, but magic Negro they usually want to associate with a black helping whites.
Mm-hmm.
But Medea is someone who's helping the people in her environment, her milieu,
Mm-hmm.
come to grips with their problems. She's helping to make them whole, complete. And that's the message that Tyler Perry is getting through his films, and he's doing it. He has done it with that character. That's the positive aspect of it. That's what a lot of people enjoy. They are caught up more in the message of what he's saying in his films than the image of a man in drag. You follow me?
Absolutely. I mean, I completely get it. There are people that are transformed by seeing themselves reflected in a Tyler Perry movie or a Tyler Perry play. It's a theme that they can identify with, and then it's reinforced with the Christianity.
Yeah.
There's always a big message in a Tyler Perry movie, and I think that's another issue that people have. It's so heavy-handed sometimes.
Yes. It's something that John Jakes is trying to do with his films.
T.D. Jakes, yeah.
T.D. Jakes.
He's got a new one coming out this Friday.
Mm-hmm.
But Miracles Can Happen, I think it's called. But any final thoughts? I feel like we've given this test run a nice
an
hour.
You know what? The thing is, through the beauty of technology, people are getting a taste of what we do quite often, and how we learn so much from each other.
The plan is, now that we have this set up to record the Skype calls clearly, is to do this on a regular basis, and ultimately we're gonna start a more polished production called Movies You Should Know,
Mm-hmm.
where we're gonna each episode we're gonna look into a different film that is available on DVD. A lot of times people want to know where they can find things, so it's sort of like not just a DVD review, but looking at the historic and social implications of the films, hopefully turning people on to stuff that they might not be aware of, and in the best cases, talking to someone who was involved with the production of the film. if they're still living, if anybody's still living from the film, we want to have them on the episode as well. So we've got big plans, but I think it's close to an hour that we've been talking, and I appreciate everybody listening. And if you have any comments, anything that you want us to discuss, leave them in the comments below, and we'll definitely answer. We'll take time every episode to address people's questions.
Mike.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I just want to say that it's very important that, what you're doing when you're asking for people's comments.
Mm-hmm.
Those comments, they're so enriching, so enlightening, and to see different takes that people have on what we bring up. In fact, we just had my take, your take. The thing is, we need to get out of this thing about being right or wrong. It's very tough. There's gray matters. And so the best thing is to have an honest discussion, and people need to get out of this thing about, what are you talking about? You don't know anything. I hate to see that.
Oh, the back and forth. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
trying to delete some of those, but sometimes it gets a little out of
We
hand.
need to respect people's opinions. And the thing is, like I said before, debate sharpens minds. Arguments sharpen tongues. Let's make this a debate and not an argument.
I should ask you about Trump. Your thoughts? I'll let you get political in this last little chunk.
Okay. The idea of Donald Trump being as popular as he is a sad day for America. That's all I have to say.
Okay, well, folks, get out and vote. Get out and support black film. Get out and support all films. But black films are the ones that matter here on Real Black. And once again, please leave your comments. Thank you. If you've gotten this far into the podcast, you're a true fan, and we appreciate your support. Please spread the word, share it. Let us know how we can do this better. This isn't episode 1. This is episode -1. This is just a test, and in the coming weeks we'll have something a little more polished for you to listen to, and ultimately we'll have these on iTunes as well. All right. Well, Mr. Woods, Charles Woods, aka the Professor, thank you for taking the time to chat with us.
Master Mike D, always a pleasure.
All right.